all stages of the turn. The technique for riding fakie is exactly the same as for riding forwards. Think about when to move pressure around the board and turn only your head in the direction of travel. Practice the funnel and corridor exercises to improve your short radius turns. Once you've mastered these, you can begin to fit your riding to the terrain of the mountain, controlling your speed by the turns you make and the line you take. As your riding develops, you can begin to move away from the piste and explore the greater challenges set by the mountain. Here, you'll have to adapt your techniques to fit the constantly changing terrain and snow conditions, matching your movements to the mountain. This is the world of the freerider. So far, you've practiced what is called a crossover edge change. At the end of one turn, the board is flattened and then steered onto the new edge. The body crosses over the board, moving from one edge to the other. Edge, pressure and steering control start gently and build throughout the turn. However, it's not that well suited to steep technical terrain, as the relatively gentle turn initiation can cause a rapid acceleration towards the fall line. For greater control on steep terrain, a more advanced and efficient technique is needed. In order to make turns in smooth, short radius arcs without increasing speed, you need to use the cross-under edge change. Here, the board is dynamically flexed from the end of one turn, pulled up under the body and driven onto the new edge higher up the slope than the end of the previous turn. This creates earlier and stronger edge, pressure and steering control and minimizes the acceleration through the new arc. Turn initiation is very strong, and much of the turn can be effected up the hill before the fall line without any speed increase. This is an advanced technical maneuver, and as before, the board turns through skillful manipulation and by design rather than force. The cross-under edge change follows the pressure sequence A, B, C, and D. Firstly, make a strong pressure movement to A. Now drive the pressure to A and pull up on B, steering the nose up the slope. The board crosses under the body, which is now already on the inside of the new turning arc. Torsionally flex the board, steering onto the new edge C. The board is immediately flexed strongly into the new arc. Control the pressure in steering at C by strong opposing pressure in D. Don't rotate the board or your hip into the turn, as this will just cause skidding. Concentrate on the timing of the movements and always think the board turns by design rather than force. Cutting deep, fresh turns through untracked powder is every snowboarder's dream and is one of the greatest feelings you can experience on a board. Though riding powder may look effortless and easy, your first forays into the steep and deep may tell a different story. The technique for riding powder is very similar to the technique used for riding on the piste. A few minor adjustments are made to suit the deeper, softer snow conditions. Firstly, if you go too slowly, your board will sink. You need enough momentum to get your board to rise to the surface. In order to keep the nose up, adjust your pressure bias slightly towards the tail. The board will then plane with the nose slightly up and the tail down. As your momentum increases and the board planes on the surface, you will start to feel the pressure build under your front foot. With the nose raised out of the snow, the front control points B and C are now closer to the front foot, and steering pressure doesn't have to be moved as far forwards as for a normal turn. In effect, the riding sequence stays the same as normal, but the whole 4-point system is shifted further back on the board. This can give the impression that you have to lean back, but this is not the case. So remember, use the cross-under edge change turn on steep terrain. When riding powder, shift only the pressure rather than your weight towards the rear of the board. Once you understand how to control the board effectively in variable terrain and conditions around the mountain, you're well on the way to becoming an accomplished freerider. Freestyle snowboarding has always been influenced by skateboarding, and most skateboarding style tricks have found their way onto the mountain in some form or another. As you progress, the mountain terrain will start to look more and more like an enormous skate park, and it won't be long before you find yourself looking for terrain shapes to launch off rather than ride around. The ollie is a key skill for freestyle development. It allows you to get airborne off flat surfaces, starts to introduce you to the feeling of being in the air, and allows you to spring higher off small jumps without having to increase your speed. The majority of flatland tricks are based around the ollie, and you can learn loads of impressive tricks starting here. The ollie uses the dynamic flex properties of the board to spring you into the air. You're going to spring off the tail of the board, so gently increase pressure on your front foot in preparation. Get low on your board, ready to spring or pop into the air. Drive the pressure back, pushing from your front foot to the outside edge of your back foot and through towards the tail of the board in one swift movement. Pull up strongly on your front foot to flex the board and spring off the tail. Lead with your front foot, driving it up and forwards to flatten the board out. Pull your knees up and apart for extra height and float. Land with both feet simultaneously and with a flexed posture. Keep your board flat. Absorb the impact of the landing with your legs and ride away in a straight line. Most freestyle maneuvers need a little more airtime than ollieing off flat ground can provide, so now you need to take this skill to terrain that will help you get more height. Look for terrain shapes where you have a smooth takeoff and an agreeable landing. Begin slowly on a small kicker and build up your confidence as you go. The basic technique for riding kickers is very similar to performing an ollie. With a kicker, the curved shape of the ramp, called a transition, provides most of the lift, so the ollie action can be less dynamic. You can take off from either a flat base or very slightly on your heel or toe edge. To begin with, try to keep the board flat and always take off and land in a straight line. Ride in with enough speed to reach your proposed landing area. Keep your body relaxed and flexed, control your approach through your feet, and look straight at the middle of the kicker. As you reach the transition, slowly extend, using the same pressure sequence as for the ollie. Spring softly off the tail. Pull your feet up and push your knees apart for extra height and float. Keep your shoulders and hips correctly aligned and feel the arc of your flight. As you begin to drop back down to earth, extend your legs slightly towards the landing and absorb the impact with your legs flexed. Always land in a straight line with your board flat. Once you've mastered the straight air off a kicker, you can add some style to your airs by grabbing your board. The most popular and the easiest grab to learn is the indie grab. Grab your toe edge between your feet with your rear hand. Your grab can be further styled with a tweak. Push your feet against the grab to flex the board in the air. There are many different grabs to learn and so many variations to every grab trick that the possibilities are endless. Play around, adding your own personal style as your riding develops. So remember, the ollie is the first key skill to master in freestyle and forms the basis for many flatland tricks. Use the flex of the board to pop yourself into the air. Before you attempt tricks on kickers, practice riding off them straight to get the feel for controlling the board in the air and landing safely. The best places to grab the board are at the ends or between your feet. Add some personal style to your tricks by tweaking your grabs. The possibilities of freestyle riding are endless, so keep practicing and you'll soon be able to apply it to all the terrain you ride. Snowboarding is a sport that takes time and practice to master, but remember that learning to snowboard is a journey in itself, a search for the perfect descent. As you practice, your expectations of what you're capable of will grow. So always take your time, ride carefully, and enjoy yourself. So what are you waiting for? Go snowboard.